Discover the transformative journey, a rancher's incredible choice to marry a hidden Apache widow. Jack Lawson stood in the middle of his family ranch, eyes scanning the parched horizon. Each sunbeam felt like a hammer on his back, reminding him of the weight he carried. At 32, he was known not just as a rancher, but as a man defined by integrity. But that integrity was under siege. His father's recent death had plunged the family legacy into chaos, with debts stacking up like the hay bales in the barn. Each day was a relentless cycle of exhaustion, but it was a cycle Jack welcomed. It kept him from grappling with reality. The ranch was at the brink of collapse. His hands twitched with the weight of uncertainty. With each passing week, Jack fought to stave off the banks and the threatening auction that loomed like a dark cloud. He could almost hear the whispers behind his back, judgments filled with disappointment and doubt. His friends rallied around him, sharing laughter and dreams by the campfire, but the flames couldn't chase away the rising dread that slithered through his heart. What if he failed? What if he lost everything? He sought solace in the familiar, but the more he worked, the more he felt like a ghost haunting his own life. The land was unforgiving, unyielding, the very embodiment of his struggle. Then, amidst the chaos, something unexpected caught his eye. A faded photograph nestled among his father's belongings. When he pulled it from the dust, he found himself face to face with Aylen, a woman with haunting eyes that spoke of profound sorrows. His heart raced, caught in a swell of unexplainable curiosity. Who was she? Her presence stirred something deep within him, an inkling of connection against a backdrop of grief. The local whispers told tales of Aylen, a reclusive Apache widow shunned by a community steeped in prejudice. Jack felt the tide of contradiction rise within him. Could he truly pursue this woman while his family legacy was at stake? Should he sacrifice his father's dreams for a fleeting emotion, one wrapped in the mysteries her photograph beckoned? Torn between two worlds, Jack's gut twisted with hesitation. The thought that someone as vibrant and strong as Aylen bore the burdens of societal ignorance filled him with an urgent desire to confront that ignorance. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days passed as Jack waged an internal war, grappling with the moral implications of his growing feelings for Aylen. He wanted to help her, to learn her story and see how their lives intertwined. But the community's gaze weighed heavily on him. Every time he considered stepping outside the parameters of their small-minded traditions, he felt a rush of anxiety that constricted his chest, a heart racing with hopelessness. What if he lost not just his ranch, but the very essence of his identity? Torn between what was right and what was easy, Jack felt suffocated by the stakes. Then came the moment of revelation. Aylen spoke of a hidden inheritance her family had forgotten, a legacy potentially linked to his struggles. That moment sparked hope, but also fear. In reaching for justice, he risked igniting a storm of judgment and backlash. Would love bridge the gap of their worlds, or would it only deepen the divide between them? As Jack confronted his fears, the dusty plains of Arizona bore witness to his spiraling turmoil, questions echoing louder than ever. Would he choose love, battling the tide of bigotry, or surrender against the currents threatening to pull them both under? The answers loomed in the distance, just out of reach, as he stood on the precipice of an impossible choice. As Jack stood on the edge of the vast open land, the weight of his decision loomed like the storm clouds that intermittently rolled across the desert sky. With Aylen's alluring mystery calling out to him, he felt the pull between duty and desire sharpen, demanding action. Jackson had spent years building his identity as a rancher, a man of responsibility, but now he was confronted with a choice that threatened to unravel it all. The days turned into nights, and Jack found himself wandering the ranch aimlessly, grappling with the prospect of reaching out to Aylen. Each clop of horse hooves against the dusty ground echoed not just his steps, but the questions that haunted him. Could he risk everything for a woman ostracized by society? Would a true union with her ignite the prejudices that had so easily taken root in the hearts of those around him? Wrapped in these thoughts, he avoided contact with her, his heart racing as he wrestled with his fears, as if approaching a wild animal for the first time, both thrilling and terrifying. One late afternoon, he encountered a crisis of sorts. A section of the fence had been knocked down by a stampede of wild cattle, forcing him to confront not only the physical damage, but also the roots of his own turmoil. As he worked to repair the broken line, each knot he tied symbolized a strand of his own internal doubts, binding him tighter to the land and paradoxically loosening him from the chains that held him captive. In that moment of labor, something shifted within Jack. His hands, blistered and raw from effort, began to forge clarity amid confusion. The weight began to lift as determination surged, a newfound resilience taking shape amidst his struggle. As dusk settled, casting long shadows on the ground, Jack recognized that the preservation of the ranch was no longer solely about financial survival. It was about legacy and his values. A legacy that could only flourish with openness and courage. With a decision settling deep in his bones, he resolved to approach Aylen, not as a savior, but as a partner. He understood now that love could not only thrive beyond societal bounds, but could also be the catalyst for healing, both for them and the community that held so tightly to their prejudices. His plan began to formulate, a quiet determination fueling each step of preparation. He realized he had much to learn, not just about Aylen but about the Apache culture, what it meant to belong to a lineage steeped in rich history, yet clouded by misunderstanding. Jack sought out old books and resources that spoke of Apache traditions, learning the value of community, respect for the earth, and the depths of unity, principles he felt he needed to unravel both for Aylen and himself. Time moved inexorably, and the days of action loomed closer, igniting both hope and anxiety within him. Fear still lingered, whispering ominously in the corners of his mind, but now it intertwined with a burning resolve. The thought of building something beautiful with Aylen began to overshadow the possibility of rejection. Jack knew it was time to confront not only his growing feelings for her, but the realities they would face together. As he mounted his horse that fateful day, the decision made clear in his heart. He felt the butterflies of anticipation flutter in his stomach. He was about to step beyond the boundaries of convention, ready to face the reactions of friends and neighbors. The winds of change rustled the willows nearby, as if nature itself were urging him forward. Yet deep down, an unsettling doubt accompanied him, a nagging question. What if the community's backlash proved too great, severing not just their connection but the dreams he had built? The time had come to face the truth of his evolving heart, and much like the horizon ahead, it remained shrouded in uncertainty. Would he be able to embrace the destiny that lay waiting, or would he falter before the first critical step? As Jack rode across the parched earth, the rhythmic cadence of hooves echoed in his ears, sharpening his focus. Each stride of the horse carried him further away from the safety of the familiar and toward the unknown. He kept replaying his plan in his mind, envisioning what he would say to Aylen when he finally found the courage to speak to her. No longer were his intentions solely rooted in fleeting desire. They were grounded in something deeper, an understanding of mutual respect, rooted in two very different lives converging. Yet with each passing moment, the reality of his decision loomed larger, the weight of it pressing against his chest like a boulder. Arriving at the small clearing where he often spotted her, Jack's heart raced. What if she looked at him with those mesmerizing eyes, reflecting pity rather than affection? What if the community's rejection manifested as she turned away? Each thought sliced through him like a knife, leaving trails of doubt that threatened to unravel his resolve. Stability, the very cornerstone of his identity, now felt dangerously fragile. Jack dismounted with a shaky breath, gathering his resolve amid the cacophony of doubt. He'd need to prioritize clarity over emotion, because the stakes were no longer just his own feelings. What if Aylen's heart became collateral damage in a war he had no intention of igniting? He found her enigmatic presence beneath a star-studded sky, her silhouette framed against the vastness of night. The moon illuminated her features, accentuating the fierce spirit that drew him in. Despite his nervousness, an unexpected discovery of courage bubbled beneath the surface. Holding tightly to that feeling, he stepped toward her, words ready to leap from his lips as if they had been waiting for this very moment. "Aylen," he called out, voice steadying as he approached. The air hummed with tension, and for a brief heartbeat, time seemed to pause. Her gaze met his, searching, questioning. Jack had prepared a speech, perhaps something grand that would sweep her off her feet, but instead, the authenticity of the moment birthed a simple truth within him. "I need to know who you are, not just from afar. Will you share that with me?" He was surprised by his own vulnerability, the commitment to understanding another person, to bridging their worlds despite the challenges, made his hands tremble slightly, despite wanting them to remain steady. This was not merely about their love, it was about respect and honoring a culture long maligned. "So you have come to learn?" Aylen replied, her voice a melodic blend of curiosity and caution. "I have," he nodded. "I am ready to face everything that comes with it. With you." The silence that followed felt charged, ripe with the possibility of transformation. It was a silent recognition of shared fears and mutual hope, and Jack could sense that Aylen felt the same tumult, trapped between a history that painted her in shadows and a future that sparkled with possibility. As they spent that evening exchanging stories beneath the stars, he began to unravel the wisdom held within her people, each tale a thread weaving them closer together. Yet amid this budding connection, Jack's commitment faced a sudden test. He realized that his pursuit of Aylen might not just unite them, it could also render him a target for the community's scorn. The weight of his kin's beliefs burdened him, pulling him down even as his heart soared. What if he stood firm against that tide of prejudice? Would he have the strength to defy those who had forged the beliefs he had grown up with? As the night deepened, they shared laughter mingled with seriousness, each moment igniting a greater awareness of their unique worlds. But the question lingered, demanding attention. Could Jack truly commit to this path without losing everything he had known? The winds whispered against the night, hinting at change yet to come. As dawn broke, revealing the harsh truths of their environment and the decisions that lay ahead, Jack found clarity amid his fears. He knew he would have to confront the community soon. But how would he defend his choices without shattering his familial bonds? He was ready to take the leap, but in the heart of his decision, he felt the tremors of resistance building within. His journey towards courageous love had only just begun, and with it came the realization that the defining moment still loomed ahead. The question echoed louder than before, taunting him with its implications. Could he embrace the love that might ultimately demand the greatest sacrifice? Jack awoke with the sun's first light spilling into the dusty corners of his room, illuminating the scattered remnants of the life he had always known. The events of the night before, tentative and fragile like freshly spun glass, lingered in his mind. Aylen's laughter still danced in his ears, a reminder of the bond forming between them, yet it was intertwined with a growing dread. Each thought of his community's impending judgment made his stomach twist. His commitment now required him to confront his fears head-on. As he stepped outside, the world felt larger than before, the horizon stretching wide, echoing the limitless possibilities that lay ahead. But within that expanse of freedom loomed the weight of his heritage, a heritage steeped in traditions that forbade cross-boundary unions. Could he truly maintain his identity while also forging a new path with Aylen? Determination pooled within him. He began the day with simple tasks, feeding the horses, mending fences, re-establishing routines that grounded him. These actions were not just about keeping up appearances, they were calculated strategies to prepare his mind for the confrontation ahead. He planned to gather his friends, the ones who would challenge him, test him, and lash out at his choices. But he reminded himself that preparation was not just about physics, but rather a mental rehearsal, envisioning what he would say, how he would defend his choices firmly yet respectfully. As he worked, doubts cascaded into his thoughts. Why should he risk everything? His family had sacrificed to uphold their traditions, their way of life. Yet, as he glanced toward the horizon, where earth met sky, he felt Aylen's presence beside him. Wouldn't love, genuine and profound, be worth the upheaval? The question weighed heavily, urging him to quell the hesitation building in the pit of his stomach. The morning passed, bringing with it a mix of dread and excitement. He took a moment to steady his breathing. This is not just about love, he whispered to himself, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds that had shaped him. It's about understanding and standing firm in the face of misunderstanding. With each heartbeat, his resolve solidified. He knew he would have to approach the elders of the community, the very people who had raised him, instilled values that were now his greatest obstacle. Would they ridicule him, label him disloyal? Or worse, would they take action to discourage his growing bond with Aylen? His heart raced at the thought as the gravity of the moment settled in. Without realizing it, he had wandered toward the gathering space, a place where pivotal decisions were made, a pit where he would either face acceptance or rejection. He paused, letting the cacophony of voices, the distant laughter, and the crackling of fires seep into his consciousness. Jack licked his dry lips, searching for a sign, but found nothing but raw uncertainty. He had trained himself in many skills: horseback riding, cattle wrangling, the use of a lasso, but no training prepared him for this social battleground, laden with cultural repercussions. Aylen, he breathed, almost sounding the name like a prayer, feeling tethered to her spirit, imagining her unwavering strength giving him wings. Yet what if that strength faltered? What if their connection crumbled under the weight of tradition? In that moment of vulnerability, he sensed a shift. Could he harness the courage he'd discovered last night? Would he wield it against the tide of heritage that throbbed through his veins? As two worlds waited to collide, Jack understood he stood at a crossroads. Success hinged on his ability to articulate his newfound conviction. The crowd gathered, familiar faces turning toward him. Jack squared his shoulders. The moment had come. The air hung thick as he prepared to confront not just the community, but his very self. He uttered the words that would define his path, steady but firm. "I seek to share my future with Aylen." The declaration hung in the air, heavy with the promise of change and the risk of rejection, leaving Jack breathless and exposed. As murmurs surged and a ripple of tension spread among the onlookers, he realized this was just the beginning. His commitment to love would demand more than words. Would he stand resolute against the storm of resistance? The next chapter of his journey awaited, urgent and filled with consequence. The murmurs morphed into confused whispers, a wave of shifting opinions crashing around him. Jack felt the weight of every stare bearing down, the expectations and disapproval woven tightly into the fabric of every face. He had laid his soul bare, but now the price for that vulnerability began to surface, rising like a tide ready to swamp him. "You really think you can change anything, Jack?" A voice called out from the crowd, sharp and biting. It was Ethan, a childhood friend whose allegiance to tradition ran deep. The challenge sparked an ember of anger within Jack. Could he really change anything? Or was this a fool's errand? How quickly the seeds of doubt began to sprout again. Taking a deep breath, Jack remembered everything he had rehearsed. "I believe love can transcend boundaries," he replied, striving for calm. The words tasted uneven on his tongue. "I want to forge a path that honors both my roots and my future." Ethan scoffed. "You're a traitor to our people, Jack. What about your family's honor?" The rebuke hung thick in the air, stinging more than Jack had anticipated. A betrayal from within was harder to bear than any external force. Doubt gnawed at him, but beneath that confusion lay a glimmer of determination. "Our honor," Jack corrected, his voice gaining steadiness, "is rooted in compassion and understanding, not in blind adherence to outdated traditions." The shift in Jack's tone caught the attention of some. Heads turned, and a few murmured in agreement. Yet the opposition loomed larger than ever. He could see others had rallied, eager to uphold the status quo. These were the real battlegrounds. He wasn't just fighting for acceptance of Aylen. He was fighting against a lifetime of lessons deeply ingrained in him. Would he remain silent and compliant, or become a voice of change? "Stand down," a member of the elders intoned, silencing the crowd with a commanding presence. Old Man Reeves, revered for his wisdom, yet steeped in tradition, stepped forward. Jack felt a shiver of anticipation course through him. This was the figure who could sway the collective opinion, the tipping point. "Jack," he began, his voice resonating through the growing tension, "what you seek is profound, but the winds of change risk uprooting the very ground we stand on." Jack's throat tightened as he listened. This was the fear he had anticipated, the idea that love could disrupt a community so fragile and tightly woven together by tradition. "Are you willing to face the consequences?" Old Man Reeves pressed, searching Jack's eyes for assurance. In that moment, Jack's resolve solidified. Facing the elders and his peers wasn't just a confrontation. It was a declaration of his identity. He was not merely a product of his upbringing, but a new generation ready to challenge the old. Yes, Jack said, his voice stronger than before, grounding him in his truth. We should honor our traditions but also be brave enough to evolve. Love can build bridges, not walls. The words resonated, catching a few nodded approvals amid lingering skepticism. Yet, as the murmurs grew again, Jack felt varying degrees of acceptance and resistance stir amongst the crowd. He had paved a path, but wasn't sure how wide it was, or if anyone would walk it with him. Rejection loomed large. That fear was an unrelenting shadow. As he scanned the faces before him, Jack caught Aylen's gaze through the sea of people. There was no backing down now. Her eyes reflected a calm strength that fortified his own. Emotions collided within him, boiling down to one pivotal question. Was he prepared to risk everything for this uncharted love? Just as he opened his mouth to speak again, a commotion broke out at the back of the gathering space. Jack's heart raced. Something unexpected had shifted. Could a new threat emerge that would test him even further? Jack squinted into the distance, hope fluttering alongside anxiety as he prepared to confront whatever challenge lay ahead. Jack's eyes darted across the crowd, tension coiling tight in his chest. The noise at the back escalated, drawing focus from the debate that had just started to teeter in his favor. It was as if the fragile bridge he had begun to build effortlessly slid into shaky ground. He clenched his fists, the roughness of his calloused palms a reminder of the labor he'd endured, both physically and emotionally. Would this disruption shatter the fragile resolution he had fought so hard to depict? The crowd parted, revealing a figure emerging from the outside light, shrouded in uncertainty, an older man with wild hair and a fierce expression. There was something about his presence. He didn't command attention the way Old Man Reeves did, yet an air of intensity surrounded him. Jack squinted. Who was this newcomer? Miguel, murmured a voice behind him, Ethan's voice thick with skepticism. What do you want here? The newcomer met the crowd's gaze with unwavering confidence. I'm here for the truth, he declared. His voice reverberated with authority, like thunder preceding a storm. Jack felt people lean in, curiosity piqued. This was a leader, not just another voice in the fray. Your traditions, Miguel continued, aren't protecting you, they are chaining you. A heavy challenge laced through his words rippled through the gathered assembly. Jack clenched his jaw, aware of the implications. If Miguel was speaking out against tradition, he was effectively seeing through the unseen barriers that dominated their lives. Have you even considered what your children will inherit? Miguel continued, his piercing gaze falling on Jack. You want to forge paths forward while embroiled in self-imposed isolation, shackled by outdated beliefs. Each accusation rang like a hammer striking an anvil in Jack's mind, amplifying his internal struggles. Could he truly confront these long-standing beliefs that had dictated his family's legacy? Fear wormed its way back in, but underneath it, a burgeoning ideal began to sprout, tethered to the vision he crafted with Aylen. She speaks of hope, and you call her a threat? She loves you, Jack. Miguel's voice broke through the weight of his thoughts. Jack met his gaze, disbelief merging with understanding. This was not just a stranger. It was a mirror reflecting the battle within him. In that air thickened with unresolved tension, Jack's heart raced. Was it wrong to yearn for Aylen's acceptance when the very community he loved still clung tightly to tradition? Every ounce of courage he had summoned felt fragile against the looming specters of the past. Jack realized he was at a crossroads, stripped raw, and left to confront the entirety of his existence, a reality eclipsed by familial ties and communal expectations. Jack, shouted Ethan, desperation creeping into his voice. You don't know what you're inviting. Jack felt the weight of hypocrisy press upon him. Could he embrace his truth while others wanted to preserve the legacy of unyielding mentality? What did he want more? Acceptance among his peers or to champion a huge uncharted love? The decision crystallized even as the crowd's murmurs turned grave, brewing dissension and clashing values. Jack raised his hand, intending to address the crowd yet again, but Miguel's voice overrode him, plunging him into uncertainty. Are you willing to face this storm, Jack, and not just for yourself? Will you stand not just for love, but for a future you truly believe in? The question struck deep, a trigger sparking a chain reaction in his consciousness. Jack's heart thundered, each beat an invitation to embrace a truth he had begun to acknowledge. He sighed deeply. The moment had arrived. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Would he finally step fully into the light of who he could become, and not who he had been trained to be? As he straightened, finding his own voice once more, and ready to unveil it to the masses, another commotion erupted in the crowd. This time the sound was more charged: frustration, anger. What now? Jack thought, grip tightening on the resolve he barely understood. He sensed the shifting tides of loyalty and dissent. This wasn't just about Jack. It was a tempest of convictions, and he was at the eye of it all. But could he navigate the wild waters? Or would he drown in the turmoil? Jack's mind raced, scanning the crowd as the commotion escalated. Voices erupted in a cacophony of anger and confusion, all centering on a single pointed topic: change. Miguel stood firm, arms crossed, as if daring someone to challenge him. Jack's heart pounded in rhythm with the rising tension. He felt the walls closing in, his options dwindling with each moment that passed. "Is this what you want for your future?" he heard Miguel shout, his gaze raking the crowd. "To clutch tightly to the past while the world outside shifts and grows? What legacy will you leave behind?" Miguel's words struck a nerve, stirring something deep within Jack. Could he actually align with this outsider? Could he risk standing against everything he'd known? His mind was a battlefield, warring thoughts colliding fiercely. Embracing Aylen felt like freedom, yet it also meant turning his back on his heritage. Could there be a path that embraced both? Jack's palms grew clammy as he stepped forward, trying to gather his thoughts. The murmurs grew louder, vibrating out from him like a tremor. I believe our traditions are important," he managed, though the words felt weak even as he said them. "But it's also vital that we recognize when they weigh us down." There was a fracture within the crowd at that moment, a division between those who echoed age-old beliefs and others who whispered in agreement with Miguel's radical ideas. Jack's voice quavered, yet it was heaving toward a coherence he scarcely understood at this juncture. As scattered glances darted between him and Miguel, Jack felt a flicker of resolve igniting amidst his vulnerability. "And what about love?" Jack continued, newfound courage scattering his doubts. "If we hold to our traditions, are we not forsaking the pure connections that bind us? Isn't that worth the risk of stepping into the unknown?" Ethan let out a frustrated growl from behind. "You're playing with fire, Jack. They'll see you as a traitor." Traitor! The word lingered, steeped in insidious power. But as he contemplated it, another realization, more potent, starred back at him. What if the real betrayal lay in complacency, in allowing the fears of the past to dictate the course of his future? What would Aylen think? Jack fell silent, grappling with his emotions while letting the moment hang heavy in the air. As Jack worked through his fear and uncertainty, Miguel stepped closer. "They will fear what they do not know," he said, voice low and penetrating. "But fear can also be a catalyst for change, Jack. Harness it. Don't let it consume you." Miguel's words nudged Jack deeper into his thoughts, challenging him to dig beyond a mere reaction to tradition. The stirring anguish feeding his inner turmoil began shifting into a galvanizing energy. He had spent so long doubting his worth and aligning himself with the past. It was time to examine what he truly valued. Suddenly the crowd quieted, eyes eagerly fixed on him. They wanted a leader. Jack's throat felt parched, but inside, a spark flickered like a flame igniting kindling. "If I can embrace my truth, so can all of you." Jack squared his shoulders, looking directly into the sea of faces. "If we have to forge a new future, let's do it together, and not through blind adherence to past customs. Together we can rise." This sentiment had barely left his lips when an unmistakable roar erupted from the back. A woman stood, her silhouette bold against the tumultuous backdrop, unwavering in her stance. "Who are you to speak for us?" Her voice sliced through the charged atmosphere, tension snapping as if drawn to a precipice. Jack felt a thrill, an invitation to test his conviction further, but her challenge hung heavy in the air of defiance. Jack's resolve trembled. Was this a moment to retreat or to embrace deeper truths? He could sense the waves of doubt crash back, but the fire within yearned to roar louder. He took a deep breath, gathering words that could either solidify his position or kindle a raging storm of conflict. "What I offer isn't a denial of our heritage," he began slowly, "but rather an evolution, a chance for unity that honors the past while embracing the future. Aylen is a part of that future, and I stand here ready to protect that right." The moment deepened, time stretching between breaths. Would he find the support he needed to confront the challenges ahead? Or would he become an outcast among the very people he longed to unite? Jack realized he had ignited a debate that would either forge a new beginning or shatter all he held dear. Just then, from behind the woman challenging him, a figure stepped into view, a familiar face that would complicate everything more than he could have anticipated. He could feel the ground beneath him tremble, and as every heart in the crowd glanced toward the newcomer, Jack questioned his footing all over again. Would history repeat itself, or could he truly be the architect of something new? The person who emerged from the shadows was Aylen, Jack's childhood friend, but her expression was distant and unreadable. Once a laughter-filled presence in his life, her presence now felt shrouded in ambiguity and caution. Jack's heart sank momentarily at the sight of her. He had hoped for an ally, yet the unease etched in her features spoke volumes. "Jack," she called out, her voice steady, but laced with something he couldn't quite place. "Is this really what you want?" The crowd tensed, shifting as though a powerful wind had swept through them, and Jack's mind reeled. Conflicting emotions surged. Her question seemed less about him and more about their shared past. How many times had they discussed dreams over coffee? The American landscape stretched before them. Each dream was now a fragile echo threatening to dissolve. He hesitated, grappling with his feelings for Aylen and the history shared with Aylen. "This isn't about what I want, Aylen. It's about what we need. We need change." A low murmur rippled through the crowd, but Jack focused on her, the familiar warmth of their friendship competing against the backdrop of his rising conviction. "Who we were is not who we must be. We can be more. We must be more." Aylen folded her arms, a gesture he recognized as a prelude to resistance. "But at what cost? Are you willing to embrace the unknown when it means abandoning everything that shaped you? Traditions may suffocate, but they also ground us." Her voice raked against his growing resolve. Anxiety crept in, tightening a vice around his chest, but Jack had come too far to retreat. If we cling to our traditions merely for comfort, what are we risking? Our lives are meant to be lived fully, embracing love, belonging, and evolution. Aylen's gaze intensified, almost probing. "And what if your vision is wrong? What if it leads to chaos?" The echo of her question echoed in Jack's mind, piercing through the noise of the moment. Chaos. Laboring under its weight had become second nature to him. The fear of losing the past, of losing himself. Anger flared, but Jack tempered it. Instead of brimming until it spilled over, he distilled it into clarity. "I have lived in chaos, this constant tug of war between identity and desire, between love and duty. Aylen represents not just a love I cannot ignore, but the possibility to reimagine our future." As he spoke, Jack felt something shift inside him. No longer was the concept of change a looming specter. It felt like a tangible breath, an idea forming roots beneath his feet. Just as roots anchor a plant, their strength gives way to growth. Aylen's expression softened, but remained guarded. "And what about the council's judgment? I refuse to let fear determine my worth." Jack's voice thundered through uncertainty, unleashing the energy bottled within. "It's time to face them. I'll speak my truth, but I won't stand alone. If I've learned anything, it's that holding on to fear dilutes our potential." His heart raced with wild conviction, but a flicker of doubt remained. What if this ascent toward honesty exposed him to ridicule? He glanced around the gathering, noting faces wavering between loyalty and skepticism. He needed a push, something that validated his struggle against the storm of tradition. Before Jack could gather his thoughts further, the onlookers shifted restlessly, and the energy thickened as if foreboding a brewing storm. What would they choose? Change or comfort? He was terrified of their answer, but equally terrified of living in chains. "Are you ready to draw the line in the sand?" Miguel's deep voice boomed, breaking through the tension. "Your future isn't a mere consequence of choices made for you. It's time you declare what you will stand for." Jack's blood hummed in response. The time had come to solidify his stand, but the thought of laying bare his vulnerabilities sent tremors coursing through him. Would he launch himself into the fray, battling the ghosts of his past, or would he cower back into obscurity? Facing Aylen was just the tip of the iceberg. The council awaited him. Their judgment could either break him or propel him toward his destiny. Steeling himself, Jack searched the crowd, finding strength in the unfamiliar uncertainty of self-assertion. "Let me lead you into the unknown," he called out. "Together, we'll carve a path toward understanding and love." But as something nestled in the back of his mind whispered hesitations, Jack felt the ground continue to shift beneath him, a reminder that his choice would resonate far beyond this moment. Would he find the courage to face the council and claim his narrative, or would fear continue to dictate his future? The murmurs among the crowd swelled, rising like the tide as Jack's declaration echoed in the afternoon sun. Each hesitant voice reflected both doubt and curiosity, a collective trembling that urged him forward yet threatened to pull him back. Jack could feel tension coiling tight in the air, a palpable energy that mirrored his own racing heart. "Change is unsettling," he declared, his eyes flickering between the faces staring back at him. Some eyes glimmered with hope, while others clouded with skepticism. The duality within the crowd matched the tumult swirling in his chest. He leaned into the discomfort, refusing to look away from the reality he needed to confront. If he faltered now, that moment of courage risked disintegration, slipping through his fingers like sand. "Do you really believe that?" Elena's voice sliced through the uncertain murmurs again, sharper than before. "Are we ready to discard everything we know?" Jack's mind churned as he grappled with her challenge. Belief wasn't a choice, it was a necessity. How could he articulate that necessity without tripping over memories? "I believe we can redefine ourselves," he asserted, his voice gaining strength. "Look around you. This isn't merely about me. It's about a future where every voice counts, including yours, Aylen." What if she opened her heart to his vision, allowing the warmth of possibility to thaw the residual ice of their shared history? Beneath their shared childhood lingered unresolved fears, not just about change, but about their own bond. The path lay ahead, twisting and uncertain, but it demanded movement. He watched as she processed his words, weighing the impact of his challenge. Moments stretched into an eternity as Jack contemplated his own fears, reflecting on the whispers from his past. Anxiety slipped into his mind, yet he fought it back, focusing on the lavish green hills surrounding them, a symbol of growth and resilience. "Every choice we make now can either entrench us in the past or propel us towards a more authentic future," he continued, taking a small step closer to her. "What if embracing change allows us to honor those we've lost, rather than hold them prisoner in our narratives?" Jack felt a change in the air around them, as if nature herself stirred in response to his daring words. Would she step forward along this uncertain path he was carving? Her expression softened, but carried the weight of unresolved questions, making him acutely aware of the two futures that loomed before them. The council loomed like specters on the horizon, and with each heartbeat he imagined the gauntlet he was preparing to run. Would they hear him out, or dismiss him outright? The thought kindled doubt, but he quelled it with a fierce resolve. He wouldn't allow fear of their judgment to shape him or the lives of those around him. "Will you stand by my side, Aylen?" Jack asked, voice insistent yet tender. "Together we can forge a new understanding." She paused, a vulnerability flickering in her eyes. Jack saw the struggle within her, a reflection of his own. He knew their fight wasn't against each other, but against the shadows of tradition that whispered of safety and stagnation. "Perhaps," she began, uncertainly, but with a hint of desire for possibility. Her hesitation revealed a shared struggle, an understanding that the battle for their identities was not merely individual, but intertwined. She looked back at the council's meeting place, and Jack followed her gaze. They both understood that it wasn't merely their destinies on the line, it was a clash of ideals, a battle between heartbreaking nostalgia and the undeniable pull of progress. "I need you in this fight," he urged, fighting against the doubt threatening to consume them. "Don't you see? It's not just my future, it's ours." Aylen searched his eyes, and he felt the weight of her choice. The moment hung in the balance, electric and charged with potential. Would she align with him, step from the shadows of their past into the unknown light of tomorrow, or would she retreat into the comfort of their old life? As Aylen opened her mouth to reply, Jack's pulse quickened. Would this moment ignite a new fire, or would it leave a chasm unbridged? The path forward felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "Jack," her voice trembled at the precipice of change. "What happens if we fail?" Before he could answer, the wind shifted again, and with it, the impending confrontation with the council loomed ever larger. Would they take that leap together into a future forged in courage, or would hesitation anchor them to the past? Jack inhaled deeply, ready for whatever lay ahead, yet aware of his own limitations and the struggle for acceptance yet to come. In that moment, the choice was his, and time was slipping away as the council voices in the distance began to draw closer, the weight of truth pressing relentlessly upon him. Jack stood before the gathered assembly, the faces of those he'd known all his life turning toward him, a mix of expectancy and skepticism painted across their features. The weight of tradition hung heavy in the air, and yet, amidst the uncertainty, he felt a fierce clarity coursing through him. The tumultuous moments that had led him here, the struggles, the heartache, the joyous connection with Aylen, raced through his mind like wildfire. He took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of courage he'd cultivated over the past weeks. This was the moment to not only confront the council, but to embrace the path he had chosen. "I stand here today not just for myself," Jack began, his voice steady and clear, "but for love, truth, and a future I believe in. Aylen teaches me that our history does not have to imprison us. It can be the foundation upon which we build a brighter tomorrow." A profound silence fell over the crowd, as if each individual leaned forward to grasp the weight of his words. He saw eyes narrowing, a few nodding cautiously, while others remained locked in disbelief. Yet, he felt invigorated, a determination sparking within him as he pressed on. "Our culture is rich, our traditions valuable, but if we hold too tightly, we suffocate the very essence of what makes us vibrant." The murmur of discontent from Ethan ignited again, but Jack wouldn't let it deter him. "To love Aylen is not to forsake my family's legacy, but rather to honor it in a way that embraces growth instead of stagnation." He shifted his gaze to form a connection with Aylen, who stood apart yet heartfully present, grounding him. She smiled slightly, the strength in her eyes urging him forward. With renewed resolve, he spoke for all who felt silenced by the weight of outdated expectations. "I want us to be a community united by understanding, not divided by fear, to face the future courageously, buoyed by love that transcends cultural barriers." In that moment of vulnerability, he could feel the flicker of hope radiate from the crowd as his words took root. Old Man Reeves stepped forward again, having absorbed Jack's passionate plea. "Change comes with a cost, young man. Are you prepared to bear it?" "Absolutely," Jack answered without hesitation. "I will bear whatever burdens come my way if it means forging a path where all can walk together freely." There was resistance in the crowd, but a shift had begun to ripple through. A wave of courage surged in Jack as several community members began to nod in cautious agreement. Their expressions softened, considerations blooming amid disbelief. He felt an understanding, an acknowledgement that perhaps their fears did not have to shape their future. Moments later, another voice rose, this one from Elena, her tone unexpectedly filled with desire. "And what of our history? Will it be erased in favor of what's new?" "History forms us, but it doesn't dictate our destinies," Jack replied, his heart racing. "Together we can weave new narratives, honoring both our past and the new connections we form. I don't want to erase any part of our story. I want to expand it." As those words settled in the air, Jack felt the tension crackle around them like static electricity. The crowd began to morph, shifting their collective weight as whispers spread. Tentative support surged, and uncertainty began to evaporate. The elders' resolve began to crumble ever so slightly, and suddenly Miguel stepped into the light again, casting a glance at Jack that held approval. "I see the fire in this man. It's the spark of change we need." The weight of his presence ignited newfound respect, lending significant credibility to Jack's position. However, Ethan's expressions clouded with insistent frustration. "You can't allow a fleeting connection to dictate our entire community's values. We risk losing everything." Jack's stare turned steely, not out of anger but of fierce resolve. "And what have we gained by holding rigidly to those values if they drive us apart?" The love I feel for Aylen gives me the strength to be a better man, to be the kind of leader who embraces the community's complexity, including its flaws. That, my friend, is worth fighting for." A stirring recognition swept through the crowd, and Jack seized the moment. Let us create a narrative that prevents betrayal among ourselves while allowing love to flourish. Change is not the enemy, it is the lifeblood of progress. Will we be brave enough to embrace it? With his heart racing, he awaited their response which, after an intense pause, morphed from uncertainty to tentative applause. One person began to clap, then another, and soon the sound cascaded through the assembly, growing louder, akin to the thunderous applause of a stadium, resonating deeply with Jack. In that moment of collective revelation, Jack felt a powerful wave wash over him, a newfound strength, a sense of belonging, not only in Aylen's embrace, but among a community that was beginning to awaken to possibility. Aylen stepped forward, the courage shimmering in her eyes. "This love is worth every risk. Change may be daunting, but the beauty is in how each of us steps toward it. Together we can show them why love matters." As Jack and Aylen stood united, a sense of calm washed over him. He could finally envision a future whereby their love could invoke change, a paradigm where they could both honor their traditions and create a new legacy. They had fought their battles, the storm had raged fiercely in his heart, yet they emerged victorious hand in hand. Jack had faced his fears, anchored in love, and now the possibilities loomed infinitely larger than any obstacles before him. The narrative he had crafted in that moment solidified his transformation. He had forged a community vibrant with breath and essence, woven together by diverse threads, all illuminating the power of courage and love. With a renewed sense of purpose and belonging, Jack stepped forward, leading Aylen and the community toward a horizon painted with limitless possibilities. Now is the time for you to step up. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this journey of transformation. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Embrace the power of personal growth and connection today.